Oh man. After this, I'm gonna turn on my AC because it's hot as hell right now. All right. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna explain the thought process, I guess, to this playstyle. This is the episode 1 of SewerVille. So here we go. First things first, we have the first part, which is the intro. The intro is very important, something I don't commonly do as a habit as well, but you use your first chrono boost on your probes because you really don't need it in the beginning. I mean, unless you're going for a nexus rush, that's different. You can still use your first one, you'll get a second one. But one of the most important parts for a macro player is using your chrono boost. Pylon on the high ground. They're in versus Terran. It's not very good to put it at the low ground. You could do it, but it is riskier for tank pushes or any kind of liberator zones, and then they take out your tech and then break into your naturals. So I kind of have a safer way of getting the pylon on the high ground versus low. So I should turn down the sound. A little bit. So pylon's going up. You get your forge. So there's different things regarding going gateway first or going forge first. So gateway first is fine. It's a really good opener, but you're gonna give your opponent, the Terran player, more freedom, right? Because the gateway, unless you're doing a very early, like cheesy 2-gate pressure, then that's very viable to try to do some damage as well. But they're definitely gonna get an expansion a lot quicker, and that's something that I'm trying to deny, right? I don't want them to get an expansion, at least not very comfortably. I don't want their timings to be very comfortable to them. I want to throw them off their game, so I decided to go for a forge instead of a gate first, right? Now this position, right, this isn't a cannon rush. This isn't an all-in cannon rush. It's more of a harassing ability. I use my cannons in different ways to slow down my opponent. It's not to kill him, or it's not to attempt to kill him. It's just to harass him. So unlike a cannon rusher typically is going to try to go all the way and use all resources for a cannon rush. They're normally not going to have a transition right away regarding your gases or getting even a gateway so early on. It's going to be mainly pylons and cannons. Now in this position right here, it's a very important position. This pylon is actually set up in the back where the vision of the supply depot cannot reach, right? So the vision of the supply depot is right here. So even if you make it here first versus here, you still can't reach this pylon view. So that being said, when I come up the ramp, the next thing I need to watch out for is this position right here. I need to stop this area from being a bunker area. See this? So I make the pylon block so that the SCVs can't go through here, and quickly try to stop the cannons when they come forming. The other thing is that it takes a while, so they're going to have to remember to drop down the supply depot to go around, which is going to eliminate time for him. So we just denied the bunker location, right? The bunker has to go a little further out, and because of that, they're not going to be in the perfect range to shut down my probe. Second gas coming up. There goes the bunker, further out. There goes my gateway. Now, in most cases, the difference between a cannon rusher is that most of the time the probe will be here and they'll start making more cannons here or here and try to hope for the best. Versus a Terran player, it's not easy to do that. That's why it's been said a lot of times, you can't cannon rush a Terran player. And that's not true. You can, but there are rules. My rule in this case is have a transition. Make sure you're denying the supply depots for supply. And don't go for a full-on cannon rush. Go for a containment. Marine can't get to this area. I'm getting my gas at the same time. So we have two cannons. The gateway is blocking any SCVs from getting in, right? So we have an SCV block to our cannons with the gateway. The gateway, as conservative as we are, we're making it at the main natural of my opponent. The reason why I'm getting it there is because I need the cybernetics core next. And I do not want to have another gateway here and then a cybernetics core. I need to make sure I'm using my income correctly. I'm getting my gases next for the transition. From here, now we just wait for the gateway. Now that we have a gateway, it's serving two purposes. I can send a Zealot out to protect and shield this probe in case this probe dies by a couple Marines. At the same time, we're getting our cybernetics core. Now the resources that I don't want to make a gateway is for the fact that we need to get a faster nexus. At the meantime, he should be getting a factory. And he's walling off this area. Yep. Now we have a probe, a zealot, and an adept, right? So what happens here is the first line of defense is the probe. The only problem with the probe is if you have about 4 Marines that just come quickly down here and they can actually kill the probe before the cannons can do any damage or full damage to all the Marines. Once that happens, there's no more high ground and the cannons are going to be vulnerable. So your first stage is your probe, but because that one's going to die, that's why the gateway is here for two purposes: protecting the cannons and to quickly make a zealot. And the zealot's going to be there in time of when the probe dies in most worst case scenarios. Once the zealot is here, now the next problem is going to be a cyclone. If not a cyclone, it's going to be a marauder. Marauders have longer range and they could shut down the zealot. But if you make a marauder, then the adept can go for a shade. And with the shade, you can get the high ground vision. That's going to stop him a little bit longer. So these are all just units that I'm using to slow down his expansion. For every moment that I use here, he's actually not mining here, which is going to be really important because my nexus is already almost up. Now the shading is very important. The first shade that you go in, you mainly go in to check for the starport. Now in this case, the starport's in the back. I can't see it though, but that's what I'm looking for, is the starport. I don't really have to worry about the factory. The factory is going to be a given. What I wanted to know is the starport in his base, or is it outside the map? And is the starport getting a tech lab right away, or is he converting the tech lab with the factory between a process? So what I'm really looking for is this Terran player going to create a Cloak Banshee follow-up? Because the Cloak Banshee follow-up is a very good follow-up versus a Cannon Rusher. Because typically a Cannon Rusher does not transition quick. And the transitioning affects it because now he's not going to have observers, robotics, because everything is really slowed down for a Cannon Rusher. So a Banshee cloaked is very devastating. So you have to be ready for it. If you're not ready for it, he's going to be able to get back on his feet way quicker and then set you way back. Scouting around. Tanks are here. There's no other way to protect it. Now we're just making stalkers, a few stalkers for the meantime, right? So we're making some stalkers out of these gateways. Typically you can get about 2, sometimes 3. I wasn't really eager in getting stalkers so quickly in this game due to the fact that I couldn't scout what he's really doing. So as long as you normally get 1, it's very important. The reason why you get the stalker is because you don't have a stalker here, and you're going to recall that stalker, if need be, back home to deny a liberator. But the liberator is not the biggest problem, it's the Banshee. So that's why we're going to have a cannon here and here. But first, your main base is more important for a Banshee because they're going to try to go for the main part of your mineral line. So that's why we have a pylon here. We're gonna get the gas is very important to get right away. Okay, containment's done. It's 5:13, 5:14. I'm already mining gases. He's barely getting the command center over here. So in most games in PvT, the Terran player typically has a command center, gets a bunker. You have stalkers, you come in. Oh, he's got a bunker. I can't use my stalkers. I got to go back home. Let me start setting up. He's muling, right? He's making all kinds of SCVs on both sides. And then he gets medevacs, marines, and starts dropping them in different places. You're going to be running around left and right trying to protect stuff because you couldn't do any damage to them. And you really tried, but because their timings are really good with the bunker, you can't really do too much. And if you get there with too much early harass, the cyclones will shut you down. And then now you're losing so much gas. And it's you're pretty much digging yourself a very hard way to get back out of a game. So instead of getting a command center, bunkers, and feeling comfortable, we don't have that from this Terran. We have a Terran that pretty much had to go through a very hard intro. He finally broke out, but it's already 5:32. His build order is nowhere near what he wanted it. His gases don't match up to what he really wants because he can't afford the gas as quick as he wants. He only has 2. So he's dying to get that 3rd gas. He's trying to get things going. The only thing he can get right now is tanks. The reason why tanks and cyclones, because that's the only thing that's really strong to bust out of there, let alone to get out to go attack the Protoss player, right? So we're putting him in a pickle. We have a Protoss that just did a lot of damage to us, and we haven't macroed, so we're behind. If we're behind, he's a cannon rusher. Maybe we can just go through the front and break him. So let's get some breakable units. Tanks, marines, marauders, maybe a liberator. And we're expanding. Void Raid over here is going to go check out to see if we're getting an expo, because we need to find out, is he expanding? Is he not expanding? Am I going to expect an all-in right now? where are we in the state of the game right now? And in this case, we see right now that he's just floated off his command center here. We take out the mule, because the mule is about 300 resources for a kill, so that's almost a command center every time. Denial. So take that out, because that's going to help you a lot. Here we're looking at the composition. We see some Marines, a medevac, and we see the armies that are at his base. So we're not really eager in defending our base too quickly, because we're getting what we need, and we're keeping them at home. Now he's gonna get ready to attack eventually. Maybe. We'll see. I'm still harassing him. I see a cyclone. Whenever I see the speed to get the vision, I know that this player is a better player than a usual game, because he's doing tactics that are very wise. So he shut that down real quick with quick thinking, and now he's moving out. He knows that the void raids aren't going to harass no more, and he needs to go over there and find out what's going on. In the meantime, I set a pylon here. This is one of the most important parts, things that pros don't even do at times, and they lose every time they don't do this. So what happens is you don't know when he's coming, and your army's over here, and because your army's here, you don't have this vision, so you don't think you're in danger, but you are in danger. So you put a pylon here that's 100 resources. It's gonna give you an alarm bell. So there goes my alarm bell. He's here. He triggered it. Now I can already be defensive. I could already start whittling his distance down. He's not going to be able to come over here and just all of a sudden come in and take out my nexus with the ball of Marines. He's displaced right now. Now he went over here to the side. That was very important, because I was going to get more eye to get those tanks. More vision. Alright, these tanks have nothing to do here. Tempests are in the map. Tanks aren't going to do anything. So he's got to take them back. So we have a scan. So with this scan right here, there's a reason why it's here. It's because he's trying to capture the vision of the expansion, as well as this area, because this is where the army's at, right? And you'll notice that I have my Templar archives and my Twilight Council in the very, very back. And you'll notice that I'm already researching Warp Gate. I'll explain that in a little bit. But he's scouting Tempest. So when he scouts Tempest, he's going to be forced to make Marines and Vikings 2 at a time. So he's going to eventually start getting Vikings and getting Marines to counter the Tempest. As for me, I'm sending a probe out. I need to go scout. These stalkers right here, very important part. They saw the SCV with the observer. The observer saw the SCV run down. These stalkers are going to come over here to deny the SCV, but before they deny it, we're going to send the probe out. Right? And so there we go. We got the probe in vision. The SCV is only here to check if I'm getting a third. And because of that, the probe is there to show him that I'm going to get a third right now. So it's going to let him know that he's in perfect timing to actually scout, and that he got it just in time, so he knows he can deny it. So we need to kill the SCV now. We got to make the nexus. And now this nexus is a decoy base. It's not a real nexus. This nexus is him. To him, it's a nexus. To me, it's a lure. So he's going to come over here. He's going to check if this is up with another scan or a drop or whatever it might be. He's going to want to deny this now. And so because I'm not actually preparing to saturate this base, I'm not going to be using my probe production right now and my resources to the probes to gather more probes to make here. Instead, I'm using my resource to make the army that I'm intending to get. And this is just for him to come over to me. Because if you can come to me, I can control the fight. Because I have a big complicated army that's going to go and push him. And so that's what this nexus is for. We saw the medevac with the observer. And so the other thing is he going to go and attack me right now? Because this observer's here, I know that the army's here and it's not going to attack me yet. So the medevac that's somewhere around that went down ways is somewhere going to snipe me. So I made a couple stalkers here just in case. And I got the Tempest over here looking for the medevac. In case I don't find the medevac, I'm making a beacon again. This is another doorbell right here. Oh. Got caught. There goes the other medevac right here. Now you see how desperate the Terran player is to try to take out this nexus. It's like a magnet right here. This nexus is a magnet. The moment you put your third nexus, expect the Terran to get aroused and go straight for it. It's just common sense. It's just the way that the Terrans are structured. Now, here's the thing. They will have a third. They will be mining a third and possibly maybe getting a fourth soon. And so as a Protoss player, when you're on two bases, typically with the Terran that has a really good saturated third already, he feels very empowered right now. And by denying your third and having so much resources still at his third, he's going to feel really ahead. So what's really going on here? What's going on is this. He's getting a lot of resources for minerals and he wants to go for a macro. The problem with this is the drawback to having a macro play is having a lousy army composition. So it's a give and take. You can get macro, but your army is not good, technically. And for a Protoss player as well, I can go macro and have a lousy army, like you normally see two lousy armies from both sides attacking each other, and whichever one tends to be the better wins. But in this case, he's not facing somebody that's dealing with trying to macro. He's dealing with somebody that's trying to go for a perfect composition to counter his composition. And because of that, it doesn't matter how many bases he's mining off of. The only thing that matters is the grade of the death ball. And in this case, he's lacking. Here he comes again. He wants to take this base out. It's very common. My probe right here, he's the doorbell. He's right here just to wait for the army to actually trigger him. Got triggered. Lets me know that he's nearby. Now I do come over here. I don't expect tanks to siege up this far out, but he did. Normally they siege up like right here and then the Marines come out, but because he's here, it did kind of trick me a bit. I wanted to see how many tanks were there. Once I peeked in, I saw that there was about 3 tanks. I pulled away. Now, once again, like I said, this is a decoy base. You don't really worry about this base. This is a magnet. So because it's a magnet, it draws these Terran players into the magnet. And you're going to go over to his real base, which is his saturating base. Okay. Took out the medevac. The reason why it's good to have Colossus and Tempest with your army is because you can actually have high ground vision. And with high ground vision, it maximizes your Templars. And because he was going for such a macro type of play, most of his composition is just bio. And the bio was created because of the Tempest. And so since he already created the bio for the Tempest, while he was macroing up, he already made a bad choice on compositions. Because this composition just got destroyed by Templar, some Colossus, and Tempest. The Tempest take out the medevacs, so the medevacs become useless. The bios are by himself, and they're going to die with their stim and their storm. Right? We take out the command center and we go back home. When we go back home, we're reunited with the bigger composition, which we're making while we're attacking. Now, during this point, he took out our expo, which is our stalling time, right? Now that he got this out, now he's going to go to our door. He thinks that we're going to go over to his natural now, so he's going to go into our base. This is where we go. This is where we recall back home. And because we recall back home, we're pretty much just plowing right back to his main base. The reason why we plow right back to his main base is because his army at this point is trying to get to our base. And because he's at our area, now we can push him all the way back home. And that's the last thing he wants to do, because as long as he keeps getting pressured right back home, there's nothing that can happen to us anymore, because we know where his army at and we're leading him out. Alright, now here's the other play. We already see that there's widow mines here in this area. The last thing we want is for us to go straight through where he wants us to go. We need to go to his tech area. This is where all his buildings are. It doesn't matter how many command centers, like I said, it don't matter how many command centers he has. If he can't produce any production out of anything, then he can't do anything with his income. And if he can't get enough production to kill my army, that there's no way minerals are gonna kill me, because minerals aren't units. And so now that we put ourselves in this area, we notice that there's no command center here. We're not going to go over here. He thinks we're going to go over here, right? All we're going to do is we're going to use our mothership and lure him back to us with the recall. Now here we're taking all his tech out. We're taking out Supply Depot's tech. We're going to make sure that he's in pain, so that when we have to go back home and go back in, he's not going to have to worry. He's not going to have a big army. Breaking some legs right here. Once again, the decoy base, the magnet. He's coming back. He's taking out the third again. That's giving me more time to go for his vital organs. Okay, let's go for his base. Take out the SCVs. Let's recall back home. We did the damage. Now let's plow again. Okay, his BCs are coming. Now, the one thing about the mothership, it's very beefy. You have such a good army that your mothership is your how would I say it? It's your filler. It's your body armor. So until your mothership dies, your army has a lot of DPS that it's getting for free. And because of that, it's really useful to have a mothership with you as a sacrificial unit. We're taking out the tech. We're gonna go take out the supply depots. Right? Make sure if there's no supply depots, then there's no supply for your units for Terran. And if the Terran player is just getting nothing but SCVs, then taking out the supply depots just causes him to have to not be able to get any units because he's oversupply on SCV workers. So it's another tactic that you normally do with macro players. You don't really focus on their SCVs. You just take out their supply depots. Because you take out their supply depots and they have too many SCVs, they can't make army because they're oversupplied. One reason why you don't worry about the outside bases, because it's not about the outside bases, it's about your production. And if you don't have the production and you have all the SCVs in the world, then you have no supply and you're oversupplied. Recall back home. He's all over the map. GG. Hope you liked this video, and I'll do another one for tomorrow, but let me know how you like it. Lights.